7 miraculous biblical wonders revealed, incredible transformations beyond human understanding. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the Israelites found themselves caught between the merciless waves of the Red Sea and the advancing army of Pharaoh. The sun hung low in the evening sky, casting its golden hues upon the tumultuous waters, where despair mingled with the cries of the people. Clinging to one another they trembled, hearts racing with fear, as the sound of chariots drew nearer, drawing them closer to hopelessness. The air felt heavy, thick with dread, as the relentless pursuit of Pharaoh caused anguish to rise like smoke from the ground. Moses, their divinely appointed leader, stood before the crowd, touched by the flame of God's calling at the burning bush. His own heart was heavy, burdened by the cries of the Israelites demanding freedom, yet entwined in the bitter reality of their potential demise. In that fateful moment of desperation, God's voice thundered within him, igniting faith amid the frenzy. The covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob resounded in his spirit, reminding him of the promise of deliverance. "Fear not, and stand firm," Moses declared, lifting his staff, trembling yet resolute. The wind howled as he stretched forth his hand toward the raging sea, obeying God's command. With a mighty gesture, the water began to recede, as if the very fabric of nature bent to the will of the Creator. A pathway emerged, transcending logic and human understanding, glistening under the fiery sky, an invitation from despair to hope. Before they could fully grasp the miracle unfolding, the Israelites stood before the dry ground beneath their feet, astonished by the sheer glory of their God. Each step was laden with the echoes of their past bondage and the thrill of a future now woven with divine promise. Fear intermingled with awe as families moved forward, guided by the hand of God that held back the waters, leaving towering walls on either side. As they crossed the threshold, heads raised toward the heavens, the chaotic chariots of Egypt thundered behind them, a grim reminder of their captors' unyielding pursuit. The people's hearts quaked in simultaneous fear and anticipation, grappling with the gravity of their deliverance. A collective breath was held. Would they reach the other side untouched? Would their faith lead them to safety? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. The moment hung in the balance, hope intertwined with trepidation, as Moses turned to behold the fierce Egyptian army, their cries echoing through the valley. The danger pressed against them like the darkness of night, amplifying the uncertainty that gripped the hearts of the people. Would their God respond once more? Would they witness his hand move for them once again in their plight? As night descended and silence enveloped them, a solitary question echoed just beyond the reach of words. How far would God go to deliver his people from bondage and fulfill his promise? And as the Israelites advanced upon the dry land, an overwhelming sense of wonder filled their hearts. They hurriedly crossed the path God had opened, their feet kicking up dust as the walls of water loomed like mighty giants. Behind them, the sound of hooves pounded like thunder, drawing ever closer. "Quickly, trust in the God of our fathers!" cried Moses, his voice infused with divine authority. With each step, they turned to look back, their fear and awe mingling in their chests, witnessing the unfathomable power of God shielding them. Among them, Miriam the prophetess began to sing, her voice rising above the clamor. "Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea." Her song ignited a chorus of praise, lifting their spirits as they realized that their deliverance was not just near, but already unfolding before their very eyes. Yet amidst the jubilant throng, doubt crept into the hearts of some, whispers of worry clawing through the excitement. "What if there is no escape? What if we perish?" they murmured, gazing back at the fierce armies of Pharaoh, whose relentless pursuit bore down upon them with rage. But Moses retorted, "The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace." His words, steeped in conviction, seemed to rest upon the air like a soft balm. The Israelites pressed on, persuaded by the fervor of their leader and the steadfastness of God's promise. As the last of their feet touched the firm, dry land, the moment of divine resolution arrived. God spoke to Moses with a thunderous urgency. "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the waters may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." With obedience woven into his spirit, Moses extended his staff once more, and the waters began to roar back as if awakened from a long slumber. The earth trembled, and heaven's breath held witness as the walls collapsed, engulfing the Egyptians in a flood. The cries of the soldiers were swallowed by the surge, despair consuming the remnants of a proud empire. The Israelites stood transfixed, witnessing the might of their God. A wave of awe swept over them as they beheld the lifeless bodies emerging from the seething waters, a testament to the Lord's unyielding power. They collapsed in worship, faces to the ground, as gratitude and fear of the Almighty intertwined within them. Then from among the people a sound arose, a sound of waves crashing in praise and hearts overflowing with thanksgiving. "The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation," they cried in unanimous jubilation. Moses, with Miriam at his side, led them in a song of victory, a prophetic reflection of the promises yet to come. Yet the night was not devoid of foreboding, for even as they celebrated their deliverance, the wilderness ahead stretched dark and mysterious. "What trials may come as we journey forth," they pondered. What awaited them in the unknown expanse before them? And amid the joyous shouts, a question loomed. A divine tension hung in the air, like the stars in the night sky. How would the God who just parted the sea now guide them through the wilderness? And what wondrous provisions would flow from his mighty hand? The promise of a long journey lay ahead, beckoning them into the depths of a covenant yet to be fully revealed. Then the people of Israel set forth into the wilderness, their hearts filled with awe and expectation, as they journeyed toward the land that God had promised them. Each step resonated with the miracles they had beheld. The Red Sea parted, the cries of the Egyptian army silenced, and the faithfulness of the Lord sustaining them. And yet, as the days turned to weeks, uncertainty began to obscure their faith. In the midst of the parched lands, hunger gripped them like a thief in the night, gnawing at their bellies and whispering doubts into their hearts. "Have you brought us out here to die of hunger?" they murmured among themselves, their voices tinged with bitterness. They longed for the fleshpots of Egypt, for the food they had forsaken. But God heard their cries. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a portion every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not." And so, as the dawn broke, a strange and wondrous sight met their eyes. Flakes like frost lay upon the ground. Manna, a bread from heaven, sweet like honey, sustaining and nourishing their weary souls. Moses instructed the people, saying, "Gather of it every morning, according to each one's need." Thus they did, collecting enough to satisfy their hunger, and some marveled, for they who were once enslaved now ate the bread of angels. Yet some among them, driven by greed or doubt, gathered more than they ought, and their spoil spoiled. It became a stench and was consumed by worms. "Do not forget the Lord your God," Moses reminded them, "for he has brought you into this place, not just for bread, but for his glory to be revealed, and his covenant to be fulfilled." As they learned the rhythm of gathering, a divine lesson unfolded about reliance on God's provision, echoed in the hearts of fathers and mothers alike. As time progressed, they encountered parched lands that gave rise to their frustrations. Thirst reared its ugly head as they found themselves at the bitter waters of Mara. They complained once more, "What shall we drink?" The bitterness of their circumstances stung their lips, whipping their faith into a frenzy of despair. Yet the Lord spoke to Moses again, directing him to a tree, a sign of hope in a land of despair. When Moses cast the tree into the bitter waters, they were turned sweet. "Here is the Lord your healer," Moses proclaimed, reminding the people that his power reached beyond the bitterness of their plight. With each challenge, their faith was being molded, and although they wavered, the merciful hand of God was ever before them. They continued their pilgrimage deeper into the desert, whose vastness was matched only by the mysteries of God's promise. And now, while the Israelites drew near to the mountain of God, an invisible tension mounted in the air, as God prepared to reveal his law and establish his covenant with his people. "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians," he would remind them, "and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." What awaited them at the mountain? What covenant would the Almighty deliver to these weary, wandering souls? In the depths of their hearts they began to understand. Their journey through the wilderness was not merely a passage of time, but a divine orchestration, preparing them for a greater purpose within his unfolding plan. As every shadow reflected their struggles, the glimmer of hope began to shine, a promise waiting to be unveiled in the testing of their faith. As the people of Israel drew closer to the mountain, the air thickened with divine anticipation. A cloud descended upon Mount Sinai, enveloping it in a shroud of mystery and splendor. The thundering voice of God echoed like rolling waves, commanding their attention. "Prepare yourselves," Moses declared, his voice steady yet filled with reverence, "for the Lord will come down upon this mountain." So it was commanded that the people cleanse themselves, setting aside their adornments, for the holiness of God demanded preparation. "Sanctify yourselves today and tomorrow, and let all of you wash your clothes," Moses instructed, steeped in the gravity of the occasion. The people complied, their hearts racing with a blend of dread and awe, aware that they were mere mortals in the presence of the Almighty. On the third day, at the breaking of dawn, the earth trembled beneath their feet. A thick fog enveloped the summit, and then arose a mighty sound, a trumpet blast that pierced through the sky, growing louder and more intense until it filled every heart with trepidation. The people trembled, their eyes wide with wonder, gripped by the reality of the moment. Moses brought them forth to the foot of the mountain, and there they stood, gazing upward as the mountain erupted into flames, smoke billowing like the furnace of a great fire. "For I am the Lord your God," came the voice from the cloud, reverberating through the depths of their souls, awakening the sacred fear of the Lord. The ground shook, and they fell to their knees, hearts pounding, enveloped in the solemnity of the encounter. "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." The words thundered down as God declared his covenant, the very essence of their identity as his chosen people now hanging in the balance. His voice continued, with each commandment pronounced like the ringing of a mighty bell, "You shall have no other gods before me." In that holy moment, the people listened intently, their collective breath held as his law unfolded. Their eyes bore witness to the sacredness of his decrees, each word sharpening their understanding of his righteousness and grace. "You shall not make for yourself a carved image," he continued, "for I am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments." A hush fell over the crowd as they grasped the weight of God's promise woven into the fabric of the commandments. Yet even amid their reverence, a twinge of fear lingered. Would they possess the strength to uphold their part of the covenant? Would their hearts remain steadfast? Moses descended from the mountain, his face glowing like the sun, reflecting the glory of God. The people were afraid to draw near, shielding their eyes from the radiance that emanated from him. He explained to them the ways of the Lord, urging them to embrace the commands and allow their hearts to be transformed in the shadow of his love. As they contemplated the enormity of this new covenant, doubt crept back into their hearts, whispering insidious questions. Will God remain with us in the wilderness? Will he provide? But even through their wavering faith, an enduring promise loomed. Indeed, he will be with us, Moses assured them, for he is a God of his word, setting forth a path for his people. As he spoke, God's Spirit moved among them, igniting a flicker of hope. Yet unbeknownst to them, a greater plan was unfolding, one that extended beyond the dusty sands of the desert. Their journey was merely the beginning of a larger testimony, one that would echo through generations. How would the fullness of God's promise manifest in their wandering hearts? What new wonders awaited them beyond the horizon as they carried his law within them? The mountain hovered over them like a sentinel of divine purpose, affirming that this was not just a moment in time, but the ushering in of something magnificent. As Moses stood among the people, the air still vibrant with the power of God's words, he felt a profound responsibility settle upon him. The murmur of the Israelites echoed in the valley, questioning, yearning for reassurance. Will we truly be able to follow his commands? The Lord spoke once more from the mountain, his voice like thunder mingling with whispers of wind. These commandments are not merely words, but the very heart of my covenant with you. The ground trembled as he continued, They shall guide your ways, instruct your hearts, and forge your identity as my people. Moses lifted his hands toward the people, motioning for their focus. Gather now, that you may hear the Lord's desires for us. He relayed the words God had spoken, the sacred laws etched into their hearts. Each commandment carried a weight, calling forth reverence and commitment. He reminded them, for it will not be easy. You will be tested in your faith as you venture into the unknown. Yet remember, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. The people nodded collectively, their faces etched with solemnity. The reality of their journey through the wilderness loomed before them like the darkened skies, filled with uncertainty. Even so, their resolve began to solidify within the warmth of divine promise. God has wrought mighty deeds at our hands, Moses continued, his voice unwavering. He has given us this law, a guiding light in times of darkness. He raised his gaze to the mountain, embracing the vibrant glow of the presence that enveloped them. He will provide when the journey questions your resolve. Then a rumble echoed from the peak, and the people instinctively fell to their knees, their hearts racing with a blend of fear and awe once more. The voice of God resonated, saying, Come up to me on the mountain, and be there. Moses, sensing the call, stepped forward with renewed determination. As he ascended the mountain, he caught sight of the radiant cloud, thick as a blanket, and he felt the weight of glory resting upon him. The atmosphere was saturated with holiness, a reminder of the bridge between heaven and earth being forged anew. Upon reaching the summit, Moses stood before the Lord, and there he unveiled the fullness of his covenant. I will give you tablets of stone, and upon them shall be written the words that I have spoken, God declared, as his glory illuminated the stone's surface, transforming them into vessels of divine law. The trembling of the mountain mirrored the weight of the covenant being established. And remember this, God commanded, I shall dwell among you, for I am your God, and you are my people. Moses' heart swelled with the gravity of such a declaration, knowing the impact it would have on the generations to come. Behind him, he sensed the anxious hearts of the Israelites waiting, yearning for assurance of their path. Yet he could not yet comprehend the fierce trials ahead. As he descended the mountain, the tablets held tightly in his arms, he foresaw both hope and challenge intertwined in the fabric of their journey. With every trial, remember the commandments, guard them in your hearts. They shall lead you to the land promised to your forefathers. The people sprang to their feet, their spirits ignited by Moses' conviction. Yet even as they pledged their fidelity to God's law, shadows of doubt loomed on the horizon. How long would they be faithful? In the heart of Sinai, amongst the rumbling of uncertainty, God's sovereign plan was woven ever deeper. The unfolding story of his chosen people was far greater than the present moment. It was a narrative that reflected an unbreakable bond, set to endure through trials and triumphs alike. As Moses joined them, the flickering hope flickered anew. What greater wonders will he reveal amidst our obedience? The promise stretched across their hearts, echoing with divine purpose yet revealed. What miracles would emerge from their steadfastness in his law? As Moses returned to the people with the tablets of stone, a hush fell over the crowd. The weight of divine presence lingered in the air, palpable and awe-inspiring. He held the tablets aloft, beams of heavenly light reflecting from their polished surfaces, illuminating the faces of the Israelites with the radiance of God's glory. "Moses," a voice called from within the crowd, trembling with both hope and fear. "What has the Lord spoken to you?" Moses stepped forward, his heart swelling with the truth he bore. "The Lord has given us his commandments, written by his own hand. These are not mere laws. They are the foundation of our covenant, a testament of his love and authority." He recounted the words sizzling with the fire of heaven. "You shall have no other gods before me." Each phrase echoed through the hearts of the people, stirring both commitment and trembling. And yet, even as he spoke, a disquiet simmered among the Israelites. "Moses," another voice cried out, "what if we falter? What if the temptations of the land drown us?" Moses' gaze pierced the crowd. "Fear not. Our God has promised to be with us," he declared with fervor. "He shall fight for you, even when you are weak. Therefore hold fast to his commandments, for they are your life." However, even as Moses spoke, he sensed a shadow lurking at the edge of the encampment. A fire was kindling among the people. A fervor of impatience and desperation began to take root in their hearts. They had witnessed the power of God, yet their spirits teetered at the brink of doubt. As days passed, the isolation of waiting began to weigh heavily upon them. The mountain glowed continually with the presence of God, yet their eyes shifted restlessly. "Where is this Moses?" they murmured among themselves. "Where is our leader in this time of need?" Amidst this rising tide, some turned their hands to make a visible god, a golden calf, a stark reflection of their faltering faith. They danced and reveled before this idol, proclaiming, "This is the God who brought us out of Egypt." The news reached Moses high upon the mountain, where he remained in communion with God. The Lord trembled in righteous anger, his voice like a tempest. "Your people have corrupted themselves. They quickly turned from the commandment I gave them." Moses fell flat before God, interceding for the people. "O Lord, do not let your anger burn hot against them. Remember your covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You promised to multiply their descendants." He poured out his heart, pleading, knowing that the destiny of the people hung in the balance. Each word Moses spoke ignited a fierce compassion within the heart of God. Still, the gravity of their sin weighed heavily upon him. "I will send my angel before you," God pronounced, "but I will not go up among you, lest I consume you on the way." Moses stood in that consequential moment, understanding the enormity of what was at stake. With the tablet still clutched to his chest, he made his way down the mountain. knowing both the gravity of their actions and the severity of God's response. As he neared the bottom, the cacophony of celebrations reached his ears, stark against the silence of his heart. With each step, he carried the burden of his people's infidelity, driven by resolute love for his God and the burden of the law. He reached the base of the mountain, his eyes fixing upon the scene that unfolded before him. The golden calf shimmered mockingly in the sunlight, a blasphemy against the faithful one who had delivered them. Anguish seized his spirit. Moses raised the tablets over his head, his voice full of righteous fury and sorrow. "What have you done? You have broken the covenant. Your God has provided, yet you have strayed." As the sound of his voice broke through the revelry, it struck with the force of divine judgment. What would become of the people? Would they be consumed by their own devices, or would they seek restoration? In that moment of reckoning, Moses remembered God's promise, his heart echoing with hope even amidst despair. "O Lord," he whispered in anguish, "what will now become of your people?" The answer lingered in the divine stillness. What greater plan was unfolding beneath their imminent turmoil? Would this trial lead to a miraculous transformation of hearts? The saga of redemption was far from complete, and the unfolding destiny of God's chosen people trembled on the horizon, waiting for the fullness of his sovereign plan to be revealed. As Moses descended further into the chaos, his heart trembled with a sorrow that was almost unbearable. The sight of his people joyfully worshipping the golden calf, adorned with their fine jewelry, brought forth a tempest of grief within him. He stepped forward, the tablets of stone clutched tightly, feeling the weight of the law he bore, as if they too wept for the wayward hearts of Israel. His voice rang out once more, filled with righteous indignation. "This day you have committed a great sin against the Lord. You have cast aside the living God for a lifeless idol." The revelers halted, their joyous dancing stifled as they turned to gaze upon the face of their leader, his countenance alight with divine fury, yet shadowed by sorrow. Some stood frozen in disbelief, while others averted their eyes, knowing the treachery of their actions. In that sacred moment, Moses drew near to the people, and in a voice that trembled, he raised the tablets high for all to see. "Do you not remember how he led you from the grasp of slavery, how he parted the sea before you and drowned the army of Pharaoh? Yet here you stand, forgetting the mighty hand of your deliverer." A whisper of fear and recognition began to ripple through the crowd. They felt the weight of their rebellion, a tangible guilt that suffused the air. "We have sinned," they began to murmur, as realization dawned upon their hearts. But with a heart inclined toward mercy, Moses interceded yet again. He turned towards the heavens, pleading earnestly, "O Lord, if you will forgive their sin, forgive it. But if not, I pray, blot me out of your book, which you have written." And as he prayed, the Lord spoke to him, yet his words were grave. "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Now go, lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you." Moses fell to his knees, feeling the weight of what was laid upon his shoulders. He could not see the path ahead, but he understood the magnitude of the mercy bestowed upon his people and the call to leadership God had placed upon him. "Lord, show me your glory," he cried out, knowing that their desperate state required a divine revelation to restore their faith. In that moment of deep yearning, God replied, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion." As Moses sat on the mountain, awaiting the fullness of God's presence, the atmosphere shifted. Clouds thickened around the summit, cloaking the mountain in an enveloping mist. The people gathered at the foot of the mountain, anxiously peering upward as the glory of the Lord descended. God's voice resounded, reverberating with authority. "Though you have sinned, I call you still as my own. A new covenant is before you, yet the cost of your transgressions must bear fruit of true repentance. As the divine proclamation filled the air, the hearts of the faithful stirred anew. The truth of their plight, living in tension between sin and redemption, awakened a longing for restoration. Moses emerged from the cloud, his face aglow with the glory of God. The weight of the tablets felt lighter, for he carried with him not just the law, but hope, a promise of reconciliation and transformation. "Israel," he called, his voice steady, "you have been given a second chance. The Lord sees your despair and has provided a path back to him." Hope ignited anew among the people, and their hearts began to turn once more toward the God who loved them fiercely. Yet amidst this moment of potential restoration, a deeper mystery lay like a hidden treasure beneath the surface. What greater plan was unfolding in the heart of God? For unyielding as he was in holiness, he was ready to transform not only his people, but the very nature of their covenant relationship. The promise of a true and lasting redemption hovered in the air, as Moses led them back into the arms of their faithful God. What would it cost to reclaim his people, and how would the hearts of those who wandered return to him? The saga of divine love was far from concluded, waiting for hearts to open wide to the movement of his sovereign will. As the dawn broke over the encamped multitude, a new resolve simmered in the hearts of the Israelites. Awash in the warmth of the sun, Moses stood amidst the people, his visage radiant with the imprint of glory, the reflection of the Most High, who had met him upon the mountain in the depths of divine communion. "Let us purify ourselves," he implored with urgency as he called the people to gather. "Cast away your idols and return wholeheartedly unto the living God. For he has seen your affliction and longs for you to be set free from the chains of your own making." The crowd murmured among themselves, a tumult of uncertainty and hope twisting together, yet the tug of guilt was strong, and one elder stepped forward, trembling yet resolute. "Moses, we have sinned against the God of our fathers, against the one who brought us out from the land of Egypt. Lead us, for we cannot return upon our own strength." With a solemn nod, Moses gathered the leaders of the tribes, and together they took the gold of the calf, casting it into the flames. As the molten metal bubbled and churned, a stream of tears flowed from many who stood in mourning, a symbol of repentance, aching to be reborn. Then as the heat in the air rose and mingled with the rising sun, the Lord spoke once more through Moses. "Gather your tribes, for I have a commandment for you. Meet with me in the assembly, that I might remind you of the covenant I established with your forefathers, a covenant divine, not of stone, but of the heart." An awe fell upon the multitude. They shaped their thoughts toward obedience as Moses climbed the summit to meet the Lord, feeling the weight of their transgressions heavy upon his spirit. "For you are not a God who delights in human sacrifices," Moses prayed as he ascended, "but in a broken spirit and a contrite heart may we find grace in your sight." And as he had before, the Lord revealed to Moses his commandments anew, not merely etched in stone, but drawn in the tapestry of his faithfulness, the fabric of God's heart intertwined with the hopes of his people. And the Lord said, "Declare unto them these words, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, and remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Let your worship be pure, your lives be reflections of my holiness." While Moses lingered in the thick clouds of glory, the people waiting below sensed the tremors of their destiny. Anxiety coiled around them. "What shall become of us in this wilderness?" they whispered. "Shall we perish here without him?" Yet the voice of hope quashed their doubts. "Fear not, for our God shall lead us, and his presence will guide us like a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night." When Moses descended from the mountain, the tablets of testimony in his hands radiated with divine light. The people trembled, gazing at their leader with awe. They beheld the glory of the Lord reflected in his face, which shone like the sun, and even approached him with trepidation. "Do not be afraid," Moses spoke, his voice steadied by compassion, "for our God has not abandoned us. He desires to dwell among us and be our God, if we will be his people." As he read from the tablets, a transformation rippled through the congregation. They listened, enthralled and convicted. In the midst of our failures, he offers us redemption and the promise of a new heart. Yet, hidden within their midst, a flicker of dissent remained, a heart unmoved by grace. The temptation still whispered in the shadows, a reminder of the ease of idolatry. Thus as the promise of a new beginning loomed, the hearts of men stirred with anticipation and fear. What would it take for the Almighty to renew his covenant in a people so prone to wander? Would they be prepared to embrace the profound depth of his mercy? Moses raised his arms. "Let us renew our covenant and make an oath before the Lord. For there is a land promised, flowing with milk and honey, and our path to redemption begins here. A greater move of the divine is upon us." The air crackled with divine tension, for the sacred plan unfolded, and yet a deeper question clung to the heart of all. What destiny awaited this unyielding people, whose journey intertwined with the very will of God? The greater revelation of his love beckoned, whispering secrets yet to be unveiled. As the echoes of Moses' declaration resounded over the camp, the Israelites drew near, their eyes wide with anticipation. For what they were about to witness would display the might of the Lord. The air, thick with expectation, trembled as the people stood, hearts aligned in a sacred moment of unity. Moses addressed them again. "Let your hearts be steadfast, for the Lord your God shall perform wonders among you." His words kindled a fire within each soul, a flicker of hope igniting where despair had lingered. And thus the people gathered their provisions, preparing to journey forward. "We shall leave behind the shadow of bondage," cried a young man, and the murmurs of affirmation surged through the assembly. They prepared to step into the promise of freedom that awaited, leaving behind the echo of chains that had once bound their spirits. In the days that followed, as they journeyed beneath the sun's relentless gaze, the Lord encamped with them as promised. A cloud by day shielded them from the scorching heat, while a pillar of fire illuminated the night, a divine guidance that never faltered. The tangible presence of God instilled courage and strength anew. Yet as they marched, whispers of doubt and fear infiltrated the hearts of a few. "What if we meet peril? What if we face hunger in this vast wilderness?" they lamented, their hearts heavy with uncertainty, casting aside the truth displayed before them. Moses felt the burden of their doubts. Thus he sought the Lord in desperate prayer. "O Lord, in your grace, show them the wonders you have performed and will perform." And the Lord answered him, "I will not abandon my people. I will send bread from heaven to sustain them, and water from a rock to quench their thirst." The next day, as the sun broke upon the horizon, a marvel unfolded. Delicate flakes descended upon the ground, glistening like dew, and the people gasped in awe. "What is this?" they called to one another. "Manna!" exclaimed one, and it was thus named, for the sustenance was like nothing they had ever seen. In that moment the Lord spoke through Moses, "Gather from it daily, for I will provide your needs. And on the 6th day collect double that which you need, for the Sabbath shall be a day of rest unto the Lord." Obedience wove through the hearts of many, yet one among them, driven by greed, took more than he should, and it spoiled overnight, leaving a bitter reminder of folly. Still further along the journey, they came to a parched land, thirsting for water. Anguished cries rose from the multitude. "Have you brought us here to die in this wilderness?" Their faith waned, and Moses cried out to the Lord once more. "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." "Take your staff and strike the rock," the Lord commanded, "and water shall flow forth. In obedience, Moses struck the rock as instructed, and miraculously a torrent of water gushed forth, meeting the desperate need of the people. As they drank and bathed their weary souls, they marveled at the mighty display of God's power, for even in the wilderness the Almighty met them. Yet still the spirit of discontent lingered. Seeds of disbelief threatened to root deeply in the hearts of the Israelites. And as days turned to weeks, Moses gathered the leaders once more, addressing them with urgency and sorrow. "Let us not forget the wonders the Lord has shown us, for it is He who leads us into the land of promise, and in our remembrance of His provision we find strength." Yet among them lurking shadows whispered lies that sowed discord, a bitter seed taking root. Not all would follow the path the Lord paved before them. Thus the stage was set, each miracle revealing deeper truths, hidden mysteries entwining with destiny's thread. And what of the hearts that still waver? Moses pondered, feeling the weight of all that lay ahead. For within this journey of liberation, more than a physical destination awaited. The fulfillment of God's sovereign plan was unfolding as His promise loomed upon the horizon. A promise that not only beckoned to a land flowing with milk and honey, but also pointed forward to a more profound covenant yet to be revealed, a covenant of hearts transformed, where hearts of stone would become hearts of flesh. What marvels lay ahead as they pressed onward? The greater mystery whispered, drawing them into a destiny intertwined with the divine. As the Israelites continued their journey through the wilderness, they were met with trials that tested both their resolve and faith. Day by day, their experiences unfolded like the chapters of a divine story. The Lord, true to His promises, guided them with a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, His presence an ever-constant reminder of the covenant He had established with them. Amid the barren landscape, moments of despair often pressed heavily upon their hearts. "Why have you brought us here, O Lord?" they cried anew as they wrestled with hunger and thirst, memories of Egypt haunting their thoughts. Yet, even in their doubt, the Spirit of God stirred fervently within them, for He desired that they learn the fullness of trust in His provision. "Moses," the people implored, "give us a sign that we may know our God is with us." In response, Moses sought the Lord with urgency, his heart heavy but hopeful. "O God, show them your wonders, that their spirits may be lifted." The Lord answered in a mighty way, promising not only bread from heaven, but also water from a rock. As the sun began to rise, the earth was awakened by the sound of gentle falling. Manna rained down, a nourishing gift that tasted sweet like honey. "Gather for yourselves, for the Lord shall sustain you," Moses instructed. And the people collected the heavenly provision, smiling in sheer delight at the supernatural gifts bestowed upon them. Yet amidst the joy, shadows of doubt continued to lurk within the camp. Is it truly enough? Some wondered silently. Would this daily bread be their fate forever? Such thoughts, if left unchecked, threatened to undermine the faith that God was cultivating within them. Then, amid the joy and uncertainty, the Lord commanded Moses to speak to the rock before the people. "And water shall flow," He promised. But in a moment of frustration, Moses struck the rock instead. The waters gushed forth in a mighty torrent, satisfying the thirst of the people. Yet God's heart weighed heavily upon him. "Because you have not believed in me," the Lord spoke, "you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them." Beneath the weight of the promise broken, Moses felt the sorrow deeply, recognizing the gravity of his misstep. Nevertheless, God's plan for His people remained steadfast. "Though you shall not enter, your task is to lead them," the Lord reminded him. And so Moses moved forward, shoulders squared, heart emboldened by the knowledge that the journey was not his alone, but was shared with the Almighty. With renewed focus, Moses led the Israelites to the plains of Moab, where the time of their destiny drew ever closer. The land promised to their forefathers shimmered on the horizon. The weight of anticipation and hope began to settle upon their hearts, igniting visions of the promised land that lay ahead. In the twilight hours, Moses gathered the people once more, his voice filled with impartation. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. His words ushered forth a resolve, a call to remember, to not merely obey the law, but to internalize and live the covenant. Then as he ascended the mountain once more, there with him lay the weight of the entire people upon his heart. The Lord spoke, "Moses, take Joshua, for he shall lead these people into the land." With fervent faith, Moses laid his hands upon Joshua, and the Spirit of the Lord filled the young leader, igniting a new vision for the next chapter of their journey. "Be strong and courageous," Moses declared to Joshua, "for it is the Lord your God who goes before you. He will not leave you or forsake you." In this moment of commissioning, the future of the people wove together with the threads of divine purpose. Each promise, trial, and miracle had been leading them toward a glorious destiny. As they prepared to cross into the land flowing with milk and honey, the entirety of the Israelite community stood united, embodying a new identity, that of children bound to the promise of a faithful God. They grasped the hope of redemption, not merely as a release from physical chains, but from the bondage within. Their hearts began to reflect a deeper understanding, that their covenant was not just commandments etched in stone, but a living relationship rooted in love and trust. As they took their first steps into Canaan, the ground beneath them flourished, testifying to the faithfulness of their God who walked with them. Each footfall solidified the truth that they were delivered not just for earthly gain, but for eternal purpose. The Spirit of the Lord whispered sweet reminders that the journey was never merely about the land, but about becoming a people transformed by grace. And thus, with eyes set firmly on the horizon, an unbreakable joy began to arise within them. There lay before them a land woven by divine hands, a promise fulfilled through trials, deliverance, and faith that bound them to the heart of God. As they stood before the promise, a sound filled the air, the united voices of Israel singing praises to the one who through the wilderness had shaped their identity and faith. "The Lord is our God, his mercy endures forever," they proclaimed, the echoes resounding through the ages, a testament to the story of a covenant enduring, written upon their hearts. And now we invite you, beloved friends, to step deeper into this journey of faith. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word and witness more powerful biblical stories that transform lives. Leave a like now so we can help spread God's Word. And let us know how this biblical story has impacted your faith. Comment below your reflections. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. Let us stand united in spreading his love and mercy far and wide.